Welcome back to another sleigh bell ringing, present giving episode of Defending the Despised, the ongoing series where I slide down the chimney of disliked Doctor Who episodes and see if they really deserve to be on the naughty list. Since December is basically just a month-long Christmas nowadays, I thought I'd take a look at one of Doctor Who's festive failures. It's time to revisit the most hated Christmas special, The Doctor, the Widow and the Wardrobe. The Doctor, the Widow and the Wardrobe is a weird one. It was actually received quite well when it came out, but now it is reviled and widely regarded as one of the worst episodes in all of New Who. The episode sees the 11th Doctor and an evacuated World War II family as they get trapped on an alien planet being harvested for its trees. So what about this episode is so bad that it has become so hated? Much like A Christmas Carol the year before, Stephen Moffat once again took inspiration from literary works for his Christmas special. This time Moffat was inspired by C.S. Lewis's novel The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. I mean, with that title, what did you expect it was based on? Moffat also wanted to keep this episode away from the heavily involved storylines of series 5 and 6. The prequel minisode immediately establishes the lack of Amy and Rory, who had been mainstays of the Smith era up until that point.
Plan. I'm going to send you the coordinates so you can fly the TARDIS here and rescue me. Only 3 flaws in this plan, far as I can see. 1, I don't have the coordinates. 2, you can't fly the TARDIS. 3, oh dear, you're not even there. You left ages ago. Oh well.
I actually quite like this episode. Is it perfect? No, of course not. But it is nowhere near as bad as people like to believe. I personally think it's quite thematic. I never thought I'd say this unironically, but it's about family. It's quite a small scale story, which I like. Every Christmas special before it had really high stakes and world-ending threats. But this episode is just about a small family. That's it. It's all about the power of family.
It's about family. And that's what's so powerful about it.
Madge is a really good character. Claire Skinner does an outstanding job. Madge has to stay strong for everyone else. Moffat's female characters can often be divisive, but Madge is one of the most likeable and well-rounded of all the Moffat females. Madge adds a hugely important element of emotional conflict that carries the episode. It deals with the dilemma of having to explain to children that one of their parents is dead. If Madge tells her children their dad is dead, they will never be able to enjoy Christmas again. This moral dilemma is highlighted in an amazing scene early on in the episode.
Lily and Cyril's father. My husband is dead and they don't know yet, because if I tell them now, then Christmas will always be what took their father away from them, and no one should have to live like that.
The moment Madge actually has to confront telling her children about their father's death is really well done, and it tugs at your heartstrings. It always makes me choke up. It completes her character development. When we first meet her, she's quite strong and full of life, but after Reg dies, she completely shatters. She has to put on this facade for her children and pretend everything's okay. She barely has any time to properly grieve or accept that Reg is dead. She ends up having to straight up watch his plane go down, which leads her to finally accept it, and it removes that burden from her shoulders. Her character development feels earned because by the end of the episode she is a much braver and stronger woman than she was at the beginning. The theme of family is extended to the Doctor himself. Madge's dilemma and her burden is similar to that of the Doctor's after Series 6. The Doctor allowed his closest friends to think he's dead, which would obviously hurt them a lot. Madge and her family remind the Doctor of things with Amy and Rory. The cameo of Amy and Rory at the end is really sweet and unexpected. It really gives you the sense that they are an actual family for the Doctor, which surprises even him. This idea of the trio being family makes Angels in Manhattan even more impactful, because this episode sets up how lonely the Doctor is and how much Amy and Rory mean to him. This episode has some important moments examining the character of the Doctor. Even though the 11th Doctor is the most whimsical and cartoonish incarnation of the character so far, there are often moments when he shows a much lonelier, more traumatised side of himself. He hides behind a mask of goofiness, and this is on full display in this Christmas special. He has even forgotten how to feel certain feelings due to his age and everything he has been through. Due to this, he tries to live through other people by helping them. It's always nice to see the Doctor returning to personally help people in little ways. Madge helped him, so he returns to help her family at their hardest time. Even though he can never find peace and happiness, he is always striving to deliver it to others and is living vicariously through their happiness. Even with the emotional story beats, The Doctor, the Widow and the Wardrobe is filled to the brim with great comedy.
This hammock has developed a fault.
Matt Smith is on fire in this episode with one of the best comedic performances of his tenure as the Doctor.
Right then, may I take your cases?
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Lovely. Would you mind carrying them for me? I need to show you around.
You can really tell how much he has grown into the role and made it his own. The caretaker segment is perfectly goofy, with Matt Smith personifying his incarnation's iconic childlike whimsy. The whole episode is cheesy, but fun, like most Doctor Who Christmas specials. The three Androzani Rangers are good comic relief, especially Bill Bailey.
What is wrong with you?
Although it's a shame they were not used more. They were a bit of a missed opportunity and underused.
Please say we can tell the difference between wool and sidearms.
We can tell the difference, sir.
Can we?
Not always, sir, no.
There is also some good world building throughout the episode. Straight away the episode opens with the Doctor stopping an alien invasion, which hints at adventures off screen. I always like it when writers do this because it gives you a glimpse into adventures you never get to see. This was quite prominent in the Stephen Moffat era, with episodes such as The Impossible Astronaut and The Caretaker. It makes you feel like you're just taking a few glimpses at this chaotic and wild lifestyle, rather than always being with these characters. It's more realistic and exciting. There is also some nice world building within the setting. The Androzani trees and the tree farms create a feeling of a wider, realistic universe. It's no stretch to think that when humans are out among the stars, they would use entire planets for natural resources. Sure, the environmental message isn't exactly subtle, but who cares? It's an important message to spread. The aspect of the trees having a life force is classic Moffat mysticism. He loves stories with those kinds of fantastical elements. The tree people are weak villains because they're not supposed to be villains. They're just there to add a more visual element to the story, and give some mystery and threat to the story because it's Doctor Who. Most of the time there needs to be at least a perception of threat to our protagonists. The atmosphere of the episode is good. It feels very Christmassy, which is surprisingly rare for Doctor Who Christmas specials. As I said earlier, the episode is cheesy but fun. The special effects are pretty bad, but I don't think it has a huge effect on the episode. Watching Doctor Who for perfect special effects is like going to McDonald's for Michelin star food. You just don't. I also actually like the music in the episode, even if it is a weird mishmash of older tracks. I feel like it adds to the atmosphere and keeps the story going at a nice pace. If you ask Doctor Who fans what the worst Christmas special is, The Doctor, the Widow and the Wardrobe will almost always be near the top of the list. And personally, I think that's a huge shame. Obviously, not every Christmas special can be amazing, but I think this episode is unfairly hated by fans. People absolutely despise this episode. Admittedly, the child acting doesn't help. Much like a lot of the other episodes I've covered in this series, a significant reason for this episode being hated is the presence of bad child actors. I find Cyril especially annoying, but you just get used to it and you can look past it. Even Hollywood films still fail at good child acting, so on the BBC budget, you're never going to get someone like Finn Wolfhard. The Doctor, the Widow and the Wardrobe is a solid episode. There is a strong emotional backbone, good comedy and a nice Christmas feeling about it. It's designed for easy family viewing because it's a Christmas special. The ending has some feel-good factor with everyone living, and the core theme of family is anchored by the return of the two main companions at the end. It's a nice standalone episode, and that's all it needed to be. Stephen Moffat was definitely juggling a lot of responsibilities during the production of this episode, which means it doesn't have the polish a lot of his episodes have, but it does what it needs to do, and I personally find this episode really enjoyable. It's a nice little roller coaster ride. But what do you think? Is this episode a nice present tucked away at the back of the tree, or is it a piece of coal in your stocking? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you next time.